Hey, my name is Kyn, and welcome to Kyn House. This is going to be a new weekly podcast that I'm going to be doing. It's not going to be a long podcast. The episodes are going to be short, between 15 and 20-ish minutes. But we are going to be talking about VCT and Valorant. We're going to be talking about all levels of Pro Valorant, including the main VCT, Challengers League, Game Changers, and the collegiate level. There's a lot to talk about, especially across all the regions and all the Valorant that is going to be played. We're going to be focusing on a couple things, including, new characters, the map pool, meta changes. So, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of Valorant talk. I hope you find the podcast cool. Hello, everyone. This is essentially episode 0 of the Kyn House podcast. I know it's a weird time to start a Valorant VCT podcast, seeing that's the end of the season, but first of all, I just want this to be a thing going in the next season. During the streams and my YouTube videos and everything I've been doing, we've been putting a lot of focus on the VCT with the watch parties and everything. So I've just had a lot of opinions that I wanted to put out, and especially for the end of the year and how the year rounded up in general. So I wanted to just, start this podcast here so that it can grow in the future. And we'll talk about some more stuff during the off season. It won't be the only episode until VCT starts back up. But let's just talk about how good VCT was this year. I feel like Master Madrid was crazy. I feel like the China tournament wasn't as crazy as Madrid, but I feel like they were both good, and I feel like definitely Champions did amazing. Definitely with the viewership in just China and Asia in general. The viewership for both the China and the Korean championships were both crazy. Not for the US because the time differences was a little weird, but still I made it work. I was able to make it work watching the games, doing the watch parties. But next year, I think Toronto was in there, Bangkok, and there was one other one. I forget it off the top of my head. But seems like 2025 is going to be a banger too with some bigger events. Always hyped for the internationals. And we'll talk about the new format a little bit of 2025 VCT, but a lot of things change. Of course, we'll have the one more team that we'll talk about a little later. But I want to start off the podcast by talking about Champions, how good Champions was, and to see one of my favorite teams, Sin, make top 4 was pretty good. I thought that was pretty cool. Tracer upsetting Lev is crazy, and to beat both of their games in the group stages, that was an insane thing to happen. They played their hearts out. They played really good, and really just to show how much China has been growing in a short time. And of course, we'll talk about EDG a little bit later, but I want to get into a couple other storylines. Fnatic, they did really good. They were able to make playoffs, but unfortunately, they lost to Sen in the lower bracket. Between them and Team Heritage, I just think Team Heritage is the better team in EU. I think Fnatic has a couple ideas that they are stubborn on, and they haven't changed. They have started to change at the beginning of the season. They really didn't change anything from 2023, but they started to adapt a little bit and they started to do good, but we still don't really know what's going to happen with that roster. Is Leo coming back? Are they keeping Hero? Hero did amazing and seemed to vitalize that team. What's the situation with Boaster? I know he wasn't fragging during the tournament, but he is an IGL, so I don't think you can expect him to just frag out of his mind, but still, I mean, you expect him to at least lift the team a little bit better than he has been doing this year. They couldn't make kickoff, they couldn't make a Madrid tournament. They got beat by Kamikor, who I thought was going to be a bigger wrecking force in EU than they were, but they seem to fizzle out through the end of the year. Another topic is the group of death that Sentinels seem to always get put in. It was Funplex Gaming, Genji, Team Heretics, and Sentinels. That, of course, is a crazy group, and I can't believe that Sin got out of it. they actually did in the way I predicted. I thought they were going to lose the first game to Gen G. I thought Gen G was the better team. They were looking better. They were more informed. But I thought that Sin would obviously make a lower bracket run through that group. Now, I thought Gen G was going to be Heritage, and it was going to be Sin Heritage sooner than it actually was, to see who was going to move in the group. But Heritage was just so good that they just fucking beat Gen G, and that Gen G got sent down. Of course, Sin beat Funplex, which I don't think they were the best team, and definitely did not perform well during the tournament. But good to see them in the international again. You know, they were one of the OG Valorant teams that, you know, were doing well in the beginning before franchising. So it was good to see them back, different, you know, Chinese now. But yeah, it seemed like they could not get their bearings, losing to Team Heritage and playing Sun, which two very hard games. They got the worst end of the stick for those games, definitely. But Sin Gen G for the fourth time this year for playoffs and championships, and Sin beats them 2-0. That was honestly one of the craziest moments in the whole entire tournament to me. You know, I think the Gen G Sin rivalry is going to be crazy for now on. I think they're building something special. They went 2-2. I always say Sin won the more important games, but Gen G stomped Sin a couple of times. So like, you always can feel like it can go either way. But I feel like both are two of the best teams, two top 4, top 5 teams in the whole VCT. And the fact that, you know, this thing has been brewing up all year, I'm glad I saw it. And they both won an international. Gen G did amazing. Texture is amazing. It's crazy because the best of 5 record got tied by Zekken in Madrid. In China, Texture broke it, and then Can broke it again for championships. But needless to say that Sin and Gen G, both amazing teams. Gen G with Texture going crazy. Kieran, Meteor played really well. I know Lukia, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He didn't have the best series against Sin the last game they had this season, but that team's really good. They're just really, they work well as a team. They know their protocols. They're a good team. Sin, obviously good as well. I hope that roster stays together. There's some rumors about possibly Sassy wanting to retire, wanting to team up with Aspas again. There's a couple different things happening. Also, I don't know how certain we are about Zelsa's spot on the team, but they're really good and they have made very good decisions. And that team just looks like it needs to stay together and it needs another chance to be healthy a whole season and, you know, try to not have a slump in the middle of it, to disparage them from having the season they wanted. If that slump in the middle of the season never happened, I think they place top 4 in a tournament in China, at least, I think. But yeah, let's talk about the eventual winner of the whole tournament, EDG. They look amazing throughout the tournament. King is coming into his own as one of the best Valorant players I think I've ever seen. His duelists, his Neon, the fact that he's so good at opping and he literally just stopped opping during the season to only bring it back in the last fucking match of the season. Like, it's crazy the things he was doing on Neon. He looked like one of the best Neons in the world. Obviously, we saw Mini Boo on Neon. He did really good. And we saw Zekken Neon during the playoffs, which was cool to see. Like, he dropped 50 on Neon in the best of 3. But King just looks like he runs it better than anyone, if I'm being honest. And I want to give Simon his shout out, his prop. Simon looked amazing. It's his rookie year. He was support. He averaged the most assists. I think he averaged 11 point something assists in championships, which is insane. He was the piece that they really needed to set up King and to have them play so well. Also, Chichu on that Cypher is just fucking disgusting. He's so good. Chichu is amazing. But yeah, that EDG played amazing. During that the grand finals, that first map, they looked terrible. You could see it. I was streaming, and I was like, oh, this team looks terrible. They look like they don't know what they're doing. They lost at least like 5 rounds of time. I kid you not, like 3 in a row happened. It was one of the most craziest things I've ever seen. And I was like, I picked EDG to win. And I was like, honestly, this pick seems fucking terrible. But then they came out to win fucking 3 of the next 4 maps. And man, the rest is history. It's crazy to really think about how good China has gotten in such a short amount of time. Obviously, they just got into VCT this season, and they already won a Champions, which is the best international event you can win. So it's kind of crazy how good EDG and China have gone. But on the flip side, let's talk about EU and Team Heritage. Now, EU did not win a single event this year, even though Team Heritage went to 2 events. They went to China and they went to championships, and they got 2nd place. They also went to Madrid. Let me say that. They got top 2 in 2 of the events. They got top 2 in China, and they got top 2 in championships. Champions. Madrid, they fizzled out early to, I think, Genji and Sen, which is kind of crazy. But that was like their home tournament because they are a Spanish org. But after that, they just looked like they went on a tear. They had Patty Tag come in for the first 2 tournaments as a sub. But then the last tournament, they had their full roster. They got 2nd place to Genji with Patty Tag as a sub. On a different note, I hope Patty Tag lands in a good situation. I just think he deserves the world for how he handled the situation this year, being a stand-in. But this full, healthy, all together fucking Team Heritage squad is so good. They're so balanced. They're so good. They know how to play. Mini Boo just dives in. They get the trades off of him. Boo is such a good smokes. He's such a good IGL. Wu is probably top 3 flexes in VCT, I would say. Like, he's the best flex. He went and played duelist in the China tournament and fucking has some of the most insane clips I've ever seen in my life. Ever. He was doing crazy things on Jet. That team just seems like it's so well put together, and they're so young, and they literally have brothers on the team. And I know they function. Oh, how can I forget Benji? Benji, one of the best Sentinels all year. He didn't really have a good champions tournament, but you know, he played very well throughout the end of it. So yeah, I just really hope that team just stays together. They're so young, they need to grow together, and I feel like we made a monster. I feel like they could be the team that wins 3 internationals in a year. Honestly, I think they're the closest to it. Another top 4 team that got out, Lev. Aspas did not win a single international this year, which is kind of sad because he kind of joined this team to be a super team, and they have played really well. Overall, they seem like the best team throughout the whole season, whole VCT. It's either Genji or Lev. You can give, either one. Genji had a better start, obviously, but I think Lev had the better finish. But Genji won, but Lev didn't. But throughout regular season, Lev was really good. And Aspas is 100% the MVP of the VCT season. But they just weren't able to win. They weren't able to get deep in the tournament. They weren't able to get top 4. Or they got top 4. They got 3rd, but they're not able to break through. They haven't made a grand finals. They, haven't played the most important game of a VCT, international grand finals. I think there's some things you can say. People were shitting on Calm in the beginning of the season, but he seemed to pick it up a lot. Tex seemed to be really solid IGLing and also playing that Sentinel. That's his Cypher was really good throughout the year. King, I think you can put a little bit of the blame in and say he wasn't playing the best, but he had a good, solid overall season as well. He just didn't have a lot of those standout moments you see from Aspas and the others. So Lev has done really good, but I expect changes. I expect some changing. How can we forget? We can't not forget about Primy playing for T1. He actually faced Aspas and Lev, and they lost. But everyone was comparing Primy to the Aspas, saying he's the next Aspas, that he's the next GOAT in the game, and he honestly looked really good. What was it? I think he got an ace with his first ever clip and VCT with his first ever round. I think that's crazy, but really excited to see Primy next year. I think he's gonna do amazing, and I have a thought that he might be the MVP of next season. Let's see what else to talk about. Oh, we can talk about NRG a little bit. Obviously, NRG also one of those teams to say that they got a super team over the offseason, and they constructed a really good team. They just forgot that they cannot run no IGL. They got Ethan on IGL. Ethan has said before that IGLing is really hard and that he hasn't really done it, and it just did not look good. He said that he would have kept IGLing, but obviously they got FNS, who's one of the best IGLs of all time, and that reconstructed roster did not do well in the final stage, but also they had 3 games in a week. And they only had 4 games to kind of change everything. And it just didn't work out for them. I think they will be better this year. Demon 1 instead of Victor, I think it's going to be huge. And I hope to God they can land Potter. In here, literally while I was editing the video, NRG decided to hire their coach. So this is him, Bonker. I think that's how you pronounce it. But if we just go to the offseason tracker and go to the official report by Sheep Esports, we will see that Bonker had a verbal agreement on Friday to become NRG's new coach, replacing Chet. NRG had a disappointing season, blah, blah, blah. We just talked about all that. I don't know much about him, but he's a former coach of Oxygen, which they did well in challengers until the end of the tournament, where Ascension was really on the line. They kind of shit their bid, losing to TSM. I think they shouldn't have lost to TSM in that lower bracket, but obviously he's a good coach. I think the players might have just not been able to put it together, but hopefully his new job will be to find out how to make this NRG roster work, this very talented NRG roster. But this does mean no Potter to NRG probably, which makes me think, what's really up with EG? Do we think they're going to disband? Do we think they're going to stay in VCT? He just had a rebrand, so maybe they're feeling better about the esports space in general, and maybe they will stay. Maybe we, Potter and Jogamo stay on EG, and they build a legit team there, because I think those two people are very, very special. That's another thing I want to bring up is who knows what the fuck is happening with EG? Are they staying in the league? Last year, they won championships, and then they had doubts even winning champions that they were going to stay in the league, and they ended up staying in the league, but they didn't want to pay anyone, so they fostered a whole new roster, but also with just Potter and Jogamo staying. If they disband, where's Jogamo going and where's Potter going? Potter, probably the best coach in VCT. She was able to do some crazy things with this team, even though the team wasn't good. It was Jogamo and a bunch of washed up people. Let's just say that. But they were able to do pretty solid, not make any international, sadly, but they had the potential to. I just don't think they had enough firepower. But who knows? Are they feeling the same this year? They didn't win anything this year, and they won champions the first year of franchising. Or is that the second year? We're in the second year of franchising. That was the first year of franchising. So Who knows, man? Who knows? But Jogamo is going to be probably one of the best free agents in Americas if EG decides to disband. And then what do they do with the extra spot? We're going to get into talking about Ascension a little bit, but I'm wondering if EG gives up their spot. Do they sell it to another org, or do they let the second place Ascension team get it? Really interesting to see what they're going to do there. But there's no guarantee that maybe EDG feels better about Valorant and the esports space right now. I know they just went through a rebrand going back to their old logo, which part of me thinks, why would you rebrand if you're gonna stop doing esports, or at least your Valorant division of esports? But who knows? Definitely interesting to see. Speaking of Ascension, my picks, which was Oxygen, they did not make Ascension. It's sad. I thought Dapper was going to be better than he has been, but he hasn't even been that good in Tier 2, so I don't even know if he's going to get any Tier 1 looks. But the teams from America that made Ascension was TSM and M80, both amazing orgs. M80, I think, are definitely due to get in the Tier 1, losing out last year and having one of the best IGLs on their team that went to a winning T1 team in John QT. So I think that my pick, honestly, I think that M80 should win Ascension. And that's what we said last year, but they ended up getting beat by the Guard, who turned into G2. But, you know, who knows really where we are right now in Ascension. But I think it's really going to be cool to see if Brazil or any of the South American teams get any better, puts up more of a challenge, because right now it just seems like the NA teams are just so much better. Speaking of NA teams, the last NA team I wanted to talk about was, Cloud9. I want to see what they do. They're getting rid of Vanity, their IGL. A lot of rumors are saying that Rooney is going to step back into IGLing for that team, but I think the world of Oxy. I think that he's amazing, and once they put a system around him that he can thrive, that it's going to be, they're going to be good. And I think right now is that the big games, people aren't showing up, and you can't just rely on your duelist to fry, because everyone has bad games. It doesn't always go that way. So I think Oxy really needs some help put around him. Thinking Man Valorant, not Thinking Man, another Valorant creator, they said that they think that just Fantasy is not the right move, and that they need to move multiple pieces. I don't know if I feel the same way about that, but I definitely think that they're on a cusp of making a really good team. And all right, so that's all I really wanted to talk about. Just my overall thoughts about some of the things over this VCT season. Obviously, there will be more episodes soon of Kyn House. Still have Ascension in Mexico. And also the Ascension for the other 3 leagues. So there's potential for me to talk about those topics. Also game changers. And also off-season tournaments. I'll be talking about little off-season tournaments, and also roster mania, people moving teams. Once I get enough big information, big news, I'll drop an episode. But I want this to be, semi-regular thing. It will probably pick up around when VCT starts up again in 2025, with some of the new rule changes, including the new teams that they're going to get from Ascension, and champion points being tweaked a little bit, and also your record not carrying over split 1 to split 2. So definitely going to be interesting. Going to see also, how can I forget how Vice fits into this meta, what the map pools are looking like. This is going to be more than VCT. It's going to be Valorant in general, but with a big focus on the VCT side of it. So to anyone who watched, I truly appreciate it. There will be more episodes soon, and I kind of want this to be a bigger thing. I want this to be a good thing. Maybe, an actual podcast more than me just sitting in front of a camera and talking. Maybe get some guests on. Who knows? Maybe some VCT players. That would be really cool. Maybe do some interviews. Who knows? But I think that's going to be all for right now. Thank you guys for anyone who watched, and I will see you next time.